He was a lonely loser, but a deadly assassin becomes his maid and falls in love with him. Hito was just an average guy enjoying his summer vacation alone at home while his parents went off on their second honeymoon. He spent all day locked in his room, simping over 2D wafis, and had turned his house into a complete dumpster. One morning, as he was sleeping, someone rang his doorbell. When he checked the security camera, he saw a pretty girl asking for a job as a maid. Having no idea what to do, Hito invited the girl inside and asked if she had any work experience. To his shock, the girl calmly told him she used to be an assassin, killing anyone who was disloyal to her master. Hito freaked out, but the girl explained that her master referred her to come and serve him. Hito begged her to say she was joking, but she was. He panicked even more, asking if he had any connection to her master. The assassin maid then explained that his grandma once knew her master's son's third cousin's driver. Hito blurted out that they were basically strangers but quickly regretted cutting her off mid-sentence, worried she might get angry. To change the subject, he nervously asked which kind of assassination she specialized in. She decided to give him a demo, leading him to the backyard and throwing knives at a tree, forming a clean vertical line. Hito nearly pissed his pants at the sight. He told her he didn't need anyone assassinated, and since he didn't even know her master, she should just leave. The girl looked upset but accepted his decision, apologizing for troubling him. Relieved, Hito sighed as she walked away until he noticed she'd forgotten something. He rushed after her to return a bell she left behind. But just as he reached the crossroad, a truck was about to run him over. He froze, realizing he was screwed. Luckily, the assassin maid leapt in, pushing him out of the way and saving his life. Flustered, she admitted she had never saved anyone before and didn't understand why her heart was beating so loudly. Suddenly, he had a change of heart. He ran after her and asked if she could at least come back and do a test run of her abilities. Once at his house, the maid began lecturing him about knives, but Hito interrupted, saying he just wanted her to do some cleaning. He pointed at the garbage bags piled in the room, but the assassin asked how many of them had bodies inside. Hito panicked again, desperately trying to explain that he had nothing to do with killing and only wanted a normal housekeeper. Because she saved his life, he felt indebted and wanted to help her. The girl then asked if he would hire her if she proved she could be a good maid. Determined, she gave it a try, but within seconds she broke the mop, spilled water everywhere, and got the bucket stuck on her head. Anxiously, she apologized, promising to clean up the mess, but slipped on the wet floor. Before Hito could catch her, she flipped midair with perfect acrobatics and landed flawlessly, only for the bucket to fall back on her head again. Hito stared in disbelief and asked if she was always this clumsy. The assassin maid lowered her head, dejected, and admitted she had no idea how to do anything except kill. She says she will understand if Hito no longer wants to hire her, but instead, he just takes the bucket off her head and hands her a towel, telling her that she can always learn new things. Together, they start cleaning the house, and with his help and guidance, they finally manage to make the place spotless. Afterwards, Hito starts feeling hungry, but his new maid can't even cook, so he decides to help her out with that too. She takes on the task of chopping vegetables and, using her deadly knife skills, slices through a cabbage within seconds. Hito then brings out some pork cutlets he bought earlier, but the maid doesn't even know what they are. She explains that she never cared about the taste of food, it was always just nutrition to her. Hito takes it personally and begins hyping up the pork cutlets from his favorite local shop. Although her reaction stays dull, he's determined she'll change her mind once she actually tries them. That's when Hito realizes he hasn't even asked for her name yet. The maid tells him she has no name, and since he's her employer, he can call her whatever he wants. Hito thinks for a moment but can't decide, so he simply calls her Maid for now. As they begin eating, Hito eagerly waits for her reaction. At first, she still doesn't feel anything special, but then, for the first time in her life, she feels a certain warmth from the food. She admits that it's delicious. When Hito tells her to try it with a special sauce that's basically 90% MSG, the flavor completely overwhelms her. Later that night, Hito wakes up crying from a nightmare he often has about his mom leaving him. Hungry, he heads to the kitchen to grab some noodles, but to his shock, someone is already inside. Fearing that the assassin maid is trying to kill him while his guard is down, he nervously peeks in. To his surprise, he finds her standing there with a red smudge on her face. He panics, thinking it's blood, but she turns around holding a bottle of sauce, and he instantly feels relief wash over him. The maid looks flustered, but Hito reassures her, saying he understands, it's just midnight cravings. He prepares some leftovers and instant noodles, and they share a late-night snack together. After eating, the maid asks Hito if he just had a nightmare. She explains that on her way to the kitchen, she heard groaning from his room. Worried he was being attacked, she peeked inside, only to find him crying in his sleep. Hito feels embarrassed when she tells him that he was calling out his mother's name over and over. To lighten the mood, the maid tells him about her own dream, how she saw a giant bottle of sauce talking to her, but when she tried to lick it, it suddenly vanished. Hito is dumbfounded, but she admits it was the first time she had such a silly dream. Until now, all her dreams were about killing or being killed, so she feels sad that Hito had a painful dream and she couldn't comfort him. Hito tells her it's not a big deal. Ever since his mom left, he often dreams about her leaving again. Back when he was little, whenever he had nightmares, he would sleep in his mother's lap. Hearing this, the maid immediately offers her thick thighs as a pillow. Hito freaks out, insisting he's no longer a child and that he can't just rest on anyone's lap. Hearing this, the maid suddenly feels empty and useless, remembering the cruel words of her former master that she was only good for killing. Her chest grows cold with doubt until Hito finally lays his head down on her lap. The maid feels her heart warm up and softly tells him he can sleep on her lap for as long as he wants. The next day, the maid begins chopping up the trash to make it compact, and Hito is impressed. As he goes outside to throw it away, he finds a puppy left at his door by someone, hoping he would take care of it. Hito gets annoyed, wondering if his house has turned into some kind of orphanage for stray animals of every kind. The maid then finds a note in the box. It says the dog's owner bought it thinking it would be a small breed, but it turned out to be a larger one. Since the owner didn't have the money or time to raise it, he left the puppy in front of the richest-looking house in the neighborhood, expecting whoever found it to raise it. Hito is frustrated, but he decides to adopt the dog anyway since it wouldn't survive outside in the summer heat. The maid, however, is reminded of a deep trauma by his words. She tells him that saving a life without consideration isn't always the right thing, and that those abandoned by others must learn to survive on their own. She warns Hito that showing sympathy to the dog might lead to regret later. Hito simply replies that he doesn't get too philosophical about such things. He lifts the puppy into his arms and asks the maid if she saved him yesterday out of sympathy or if it was simply her instinct. He says it is human instinct to save those we can and then takes the puppy inside. Hito finds the puppy cute and fluffy and asks the maid if she wants to hold it. She quickly refuses and moves away as Hito approaches her with the dog. When he asks if she's afraid of dogs, she blushes in embarrassment and admits that she is. Still, she says that if Hito orders her to hold or play with the puppy, she will obey despite her fear. Hito tells her not to force herself, then asks why she fears dogs. The maid reveals that when her former master was training her to be an assassin, he left her in a forest with wild dogs. That trauma has haunted her ever since. Hito tells her this is a problem since he plans to keep the puppy in the house for now and hoped she would help. Struck by his words, the maid decides to overcome her fear to be useful to her new master. She asks if she can hold the dog, so Hito hands it to her. The maid starts trembling like an old phone while the puppy rests in her arms. When Hito asks what exactly she's afraid of, she says it's claws and fangs, but Hito reassures her that the dog looks innocent and harmless. Suddenly, the puppy chews on her finger, and she panics so much she nearly throws it out the window. Luckily, Hito stops her and takes the dog back. But soon the puppy starts biting Hito's fingers as well, and he realizes its teeth are itching. So he takes it to a pet shop to get checked and buy supplies. Later, when they return, Hito thanks the maid for helping him with the shopping. She replies that she has never seen anyone as kind as him. She explains that in her old life, failure wasn't an option, her only duty was to kill. But Hito treats her kindly, even though she fails at nearly everything. She asks what she can do to be more useful, and whether she even belongs with him. Before Hito can answer, the puppy runs off, but he quickly grabs it. He then tells the maid that she must have wanted to stop being an assassin and live like a normal girl. He says this is her chance, so she shouldn't overthink it. The maid realizes that during all her time as an assassin, she never once thought of quitting. Killing was her only purpose. She believed she'd be useless otherwise. But then Hito tells her to look at the sunset. Standing beside him, she thinks that maybe by staying with him, she'll discover what she truly wants. Hito admits that when she first came to his house, he was terrified. He had never met a real assassin before. But after getting to know her, he realized she's a good person at heart. Hearing that reminds the maid of her childhood when her parents praised her. She suddenly asks Hito how she can become a normal girl again. Hito's first advice is about her failures. He tells her that since everything he asks is new to her, failing is normal. She shouldn't let those failures weigh her down. If you loved this anime story and want to know what happens next, drop a comment below and I'll make part 2 just for you. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.